from the class. Ross and CK are here. Oh, sorry, you guys. Sorry, and Angie's back there too. So this is more aimed for the other 110 people on campus who don't know what's going on with the music room or what the drum is, or more importantly, how it's pronounced. So the name of the drum is called a bowron. However, if you look at the spelling of it, B-O-D-H-R-A-N, this is for the people at home. So usually in Irish, when you have a bunch of consonants together, it turns into a soft or a silent syllable. So you say bowron, as in like take a bow, Mr. Ron. Just a simple Irish frame drum. It's just a piece of goat skin stretched over a shell. I'll tell you what I'm going to do with it here real quick just to get some different sounds. As far as the stick we use to play it, it's called a tipper, or in Irish, a capeen. So C-I-P-I fada, and that little accent mark is called a fada. And capeen in Irish means like a small piece of wood or kindling. So if you look at the actual tipper I'm using, it actually looks like a little bit of kindling. And actually this is more of a custom, or excuse me, a professionally made tipper. And these more or less are just kind of like the barbecue skewers you get from Publix or Kroger or something. So if you look at it, if you would have been back in the day and had a farmer or a shepherd put this stuff together, and here's for the folks at home, this is the little tipper that I'm using. So you would have something, it looks like kindling. So they just, instead of drum looks like kindling, so they chose the word capeen. Now, as far as what I'm going to do with the drum by itself just makes standard open Helen sounds like any other skin frame drum you use. However, I'm going to do a couple of things to manipulate the sound. The first thing I do is I'm going to put my hand flat on the skin so I can get a muted tone. And then basically with physics is if I ever want to change the pitch or the tone of the drum, I have to do one of two things. I either have to change the surface tension of the body that I'm hitting, or I have to change the surface area of the body that I'm hitting. So if I take the heel of my hand and press it into the skin, I can then raise and lower the pitch. Or if I take my hand and use it like a squeegee and go up and down, and then some combination of all those manipulations of the skin, I can get the whole thing to almost sound like a drum set. To just do a different sound. I brought a couple examples of what this sounds like, kind of like in situ. So the first example is probably one of the more purer ones. I'm going to accompany a recording of the Uilleann piper by the name of Sean McCarthy in a set of 2 jigs. The first jig is called the Trip to Athlone. It's a 2-part jig. The second one is called Pagina Rhapsodies. It's a 3-part jig. And what my job is as a drummer, and most melody players will or some of the melody players I know will joke around and say the drummers only exist at the pleasure of the melody player. Our job is there to just support them and make them sound good, and that's what I'm going to try to do with the recording. I'm going to listen for certain things that he's doing, certain hits, certain punches, certain accents, and then just make the tune sound better. Anyway, here. context. I'm going to do another kind of more traditional setting of it, another one with the uilleann piper. Uilleann pipes are so much fun to play with just because, uilleann pipes are just so much fun to play with just because it's such a unique, interesting instrument. So that first tune set that I just did was a set of jigs. In Irish traditional music, basically everything is based off of the dance type that would accompany, or the tune would accompany. So that particular one was a jig. The easiest way to tell 90% about what kind of tune you hear is based off of the subdivisions you hear with the pulse. So with that particular pulse, you can obviously have that foot tap going with it. And the rhythm I was playing against it was basically groups of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. J-I-G, 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 rashers and sausages, rashers and sausages. So if you can think of that J-I-G, 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 J-I-G with that foot tap, chances are it's going to be a jig. Not always, but a lot of the time. Now the next one is I'm going to put 4 subdivisions with each pulse. So it's with that same pulse and same foot tap, I'm going to get this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, D, or that same mnemonic device works. R-E-E-L, 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 R-E-E-L. So if you can spell out the word real, sometimes it'll be pretty fast. To that foot tap, chances are that's going to be a reel. So I'm going to do another tune with this piper instead with a reel. And what I'm going to do now, this is actually a 4-part reel. So most tunes have this real predictable structure of an AA, then a BB section that repeats AA, BB, much like some of the old-time reels and tunes you hear around here. This one's going to go AA, BB, CC, D, D. And I'm going to kind of like do a little bit of a storyline or an arc with it, because if I played the same rhythm the whole time, it would bore the both of us, or it would bore all of us. So I'm going to, for this first one, I'm going to kind of make it a little more traditional, a little more drony, not as much voicing, little impacts. The second one I'm actually going to borrow loosely from an Arabic rhythm called a malfouf, which you hear in Middle Eastern or North African frame drumming. And then the second one's going to be more of your typical traditional Irish reel. And then the last one, I'm going to kind of say, all right, I showed you this A, I showed you the B, I showed you the C. It's going to kind of be the synopsis of everything that you've heard. So the idea is there's actually a little structure based off of what he's playing that I'm going to try to have you guys play. So this is almost kind of like me telling you, this is almost like seeing the playbill at an opera show or a musical. It's like you may not know everything, but it's all right, you know the story that's coming. So this is a piece called Jenny's Welcome to Charlie. Do with it what you will. polka. And jigs, reels sound like, yeah, that's stuff that we've heard come from Ireland and Scotland, but why the polka? No one really knows for sure, but one really good idea is the Napoleonic Wars. The idea is that if you imagine, you're Ireland and you're like this big green teddy bear that's laying on your right-hand side facing North America. And right where your paws are kind of tomorrow, right where your knees are kind of like, getting into Galway Bay. You're being chased by a dragon. So the idea, and I don't know how true this story is, but ever since I heard it, it keeps getting shared, and it's just interesting. So the idea of Napoleonic Wars is that Napoleon, at certain times in history throughout Europe, you could hire various mercenaries to help augment your own country's army. I think our own country did it with Prussians and Hessians during the American Revolution. So Napoleon realized, hey, if I want to fight the crown, I have this tactical advantage right on the other side of Ireland, or of England, because the Irish, so you sent emissaries over and go, hey, you want a chance to kill the English? To which a lot of them enthusiastically probably said, yeah, absolutely. So all these Irishmen would go to continental Europe to go train with these armies or be around them, and then you have all these different soldiers from different countries together, and they're bringing their language, their spices, their cooking, and their folk tunes. So the idea is that maybe the Irish picked up, from folks from Central Europe, and then brought that polka back to Ireland with them. It really hasn't been quite the same since. So this is going to be a duet with a penny whistle, and again, just to kind of help you understand what I'm trying to get done with this. The penny whistle is a unique instrument because it has two volumes, loud or louder. And the reason why that is it plays in two octaves. When you play in the lower octave, you have to blow fairly strong. When you want to pop the octave and go higher, you have to overblow the instrument. It changes the direction of the air and then gets this higher pitch out of it. So in order to give the music and the rest of the ensemble a musical experience where I have highs, I have lows, we kind of got a Jedi mind trick the audience into what they're actually hearing. The whistle volume is not really changing all of that much throughout the entire performance. By the way, it's a set of 4 different tunes back to back, twice each. So it's my job, is I have to do what I did earlier. Listen to these accents, hit these accents, complement different features of the tune. But since I'm the one that can change the most out of the duet, it's my job to guide it in terms of dynamics. So I'm going to hit certain sections, back off on certain sections, and then just kind of make the tune sound a little more musical, at least hopefully from y'all's perspective. So this is the liminal polka set. The whistle player is my duet partner, Andrew from Mobile, right across the bay from where you are at. So anyway, this is what this sounds like. What do you guys do? like a more traditional duet-ish session way of doing that. As with anything in the world today, because of YouTube, Facebook, media, cultures can influence each other. One of the things you've been hearing in Irish traditional music, particularly from like the late 90s, early 2000s, is hearing this influence of what more or less is our ethnic percussion instrument as Americans. I'm curious, what do you think that is?
Oh.
My students know.
Tambourine.
Say it?
Tambourine.
No, but that's Turkish or Italian.
What's our
So for
percussion?
all intents and purposes, our ethnic percussion instrument as Americans, because India's got the tabla, Ireland's got we have the drum set. Isn't the drum set? And that's weird. It's like, oh yeah, well we take it for granted because we hear it in our music. Pop, rock, blues, funk, pop. It's just kind of like always there. It was developed in the United States between Chicago, New York, and New Orleans, late 1800s, early 1900s. And that whole idea of using a bass drum to hit that bottom tone, and then like a hi-hat cymbal or some other midway to kind of keep rhythm in between, so you have that bass in the midway, and then using a snare for some sort of backbeat, whether it's rock or something more that's akin to like maybe country two-step-ish. Is that relationship of voices is something that came from the U.S. and just went all over the world. The other thing is that too, since the first three tunes, it was my job to kind of complement what the tune did. Now my role is going to change. There's a really good guitarist on this next recording by the name of Hazel Ketchum. I think she lives in Savannah, Georgia. She's playing this more like a rhythm guitar in a funk or rock band. So my job's got to change. I'm going to complement her and be a drum set player to her so that we can build this rhythm section, and then the fiddle can play over the top. And it's going to change. She's going to change what she puts rhythm. Sometimes she'll do this kind of really slow, kind of funk rock rhythm. Sometimes she'll change it up to this almost kind of like Johnny Cash, hear that train. And sometimes she'll do a syncopated. But between all those different feels, I have to know where that occurs, what she's doing, and do my best to complement her guitar playing. So anyway, this is a set of 3 reels called Paddy Ryan's Dreams, Paddy Foddy's #1, and the Shetland Fiddler. And it's going to kind of go through all these different things. And Hazel's going to lead the way, and I'm going to follow. section player, but there's a couple of moments, especially at the end, where you can hear the fiddler go, and that's your like Phil Collins going. So we have ornamentation that we use, and generally we have three types, which is double-ended, which is more that traditional Danan's chieftain's way. If you hear like that old school music, and what we're doing to get the tipper to make a faster rhythm is I'll do actually down, back of the tipper, and then up. So you actually use both ends of the tipper and play faster. So when the fiddler's going, I was going, just to kind of say that moment, hey Tom, I see you, I'm going to try to do what you're doing. The other thing, it may not have come out too well just because the sound speaker here, but I was getting this kind of wail tone from the drum.
Sounds like a whale.
And it sounds so much cooler. Like if this were mic'd and I had a subwoofer in the sound system, you could do this and hold it up to the monitor and get kind of that rock star. Sorry, this last 2 minutes is definitely more modern. If you can imagine what would happen if some Irish concepts in music meant this kind of forward progressive looking idea of some Scottish musicians, add some modern instruments, and include Steve Reich on the conversation. So you know Steve Reich was a composer that was used to like cycling or phasing music. We'd take a certain pattern and phase it through and layer other pieces on top, so it almost sounds like everything was this huge just amalgamation of cool things. This is kind of the same idea. Mathematically, theoretically, everything in this tune is based on 12. And we can take 12 as a full cycle of 12. We can take 12 as 6 and 6. We can take 12 as 4, 4 and 4. Or we can take 12 as 3, 3, 3 and 3. So what is happening is all of these ideas of 12 are layering on top of each other, so it seems like it's chaotic. But the idea is that this kind of quote-unquote chaos is actually supposed to tell us a story of something you see in nature, which is that of the life cycle of a mayfly. So the idea is that if you've ever seen mayfly, on the one day that they live is the day starts kind of weird. And this is all based off of mayflies on the River Spey, where the composer of this piece, Hamish Napier, lives in eastern Scotland. But the idea is it starts up, then you start seeing all this stuff, and all these little, if you just look down off a bridge, all these little critters just going everywhere. And that's what kind of all these overlaying whistle ideas show. And then eventually, as you see with the life cycle, it kind of goes up, everything's exciting, chills, it's like, wait, we got 4 hours to live, we better make some offspring. So then the whole thing, so everything gets kind of hectic. So the whole idea is that this piece is kind of a tone poem for that life cycle of the mayfly, which means that things change, our own lives change, the meters of this piece are currently changed. Everything are changing. I'm playing a little reel, I'm playing a little jig, I'm playing odd meters, combinations of 4, a 3, and a 5, just to kind of tell this kind of like arc story, and this is what it sounds like. This is the make block. You'll hear some clicks at the beginning. That's kind of my cue to say, hey, pay attention to the piece is starting. This is what it sounds like. Share some of the stuff. Thank you so much to Charmaine and the Folk School for bringing me in for this 7th time. I've had it. Thank you to all my students who came out. Guys, have a wonderful last day. Safe travels home, and